Well, we did an interview with Tam here. We were talking about domestic abuse, and we said we have a second parter. This is about a course for people who are or have some association with domestic abuse. So over to you. How does that
Yeah, it's
work?
actually a course written specifically for women, this one.
Right.
So it's women who've experienced domestic abuse and been affected by domestic abuse. Ideally, for safety reasons, you need to be out of that abusive relationship and living separately from your ex-partner. It could be that you've recently left an abuse situation, but it could equally be that you experienced domestic abuse years ago, but you feel there's still some issues that you haven't fully dealt with or triggers that you still have or whatever. And this course is designed to help us sort of regain ownership of our own lives, because when you're in an abusive relationship, so much control is taken away from you. So many decisions are things that you can't make that decision for yourself anymore. You have to walk on eggshells and do what the abusive person wants you to do. And you also become undermined and you lose self-confidence, so you actually don't believe in yourself anymore, don't believe you can make sensible choices for yourself. So a lot of it is about that. It focuses on different areas like own my choices, own my mind, own my body. And we do a little bit on that theme each week. There's a big workbook, which at the end of the course, assuming that it is safe for them to do so and they're not with an abusive partner, the women can take the book home with them, and then it's something they can refer to and keep adding to. There's bits to add your own notes and thoughts. It's a very trauma-informed course, so it looks at the trauma, the effect of trauma on the body, abuse as trauma, and how it affects the way we think, the way we work, the way we behave. A little bit about PTSD and flashbacks and that kind of things, which people can experience. It teaches ways to cope with that and to relax yourself and breathe. And it's quite innovative. We use a lot of video content and discussions, but I think we need to stress it's not like a support group. So it's not a place where the women go and tell what happened to them. They don't have to mention anything that happened to them unless they want to or it's relevant to a discussion. But it's kind of the theory of abuse and understanding it as a theoretical subject and how it works on us, how it affects us, and how we can overcome it.
Empowerment? Would that be the word to use on this thing for taking this back?
We've run it as a pilot on the Isle of Man, and it's also been run in the UK, and all the women who've done it say they would recommend it to other people, and they've said they found it life-changing and empowering. And that includes women who, I mean, we had people on our course who had, their abuse situation was a long time ago, and they said at the end of the course they were so glad they'd done it. They thought they'd dealt with things, but actually they discovered they hadn't dealt with it as much as they thought they had, because we tend to put things in boxes and just not think about it. And it may still be affecting us, or it may be something that just crops up now and then if we're under stress.
When does domestic abuse start? When does it just turn from a little heated argument into this sort of controlment and then physical potentially abuse?
Well, that's a complicated question.
Yeah,
it's not really an argument for a start.
Right.
It's more about, it's all about control. And it probably starts right away, but you might not be aware of it. Often it starts with charm. And obviously if you charm someone, it's quite easy to manipulate them. Quite often it starts with gifts and, love bombing. So it can be, at the beginning, it can be a relationship that feels like this is wonderful, this is your soulmate, but actually they're finding out stuff about you and then feeding it back to you. If you're interested in, horse riding, then they'll say they are. And so that's why you come to believe that they're absolutely the soulmate, they're the right person for you, you're so similar. But actually it's all manipulation to kind of reel you in. And then once the first months or years of the relationship often can be pleasant, but just over time the control is stepped up and the good times are getting less and the bad times are getting more. So
not necessarily a vulnerable person as people think. It could be someone that just is quite headstrong in this to start with, but they get wrapped up in this thing.
Yes, it can happen to absolutely anyone. And sometimes it's been said, I don't know how true it is, but it has been said that actually some abusive people will target someone who seems strong and confident, and enjoy the challenge of the undermining and the control and taking over. So no, our image of what a victim is and what a victim looks like needs to totally change, and we hate the word really, because it does immediately summon up someone very vulnerable, someone very weak, but you're not. And to live with the mind games and the abuse that's going on, you have to actually be very strong. And to survive it, you've got to be strong. To escape, you've got to be strong. So actually, you're not a weak, cowed.
And where's that first point of contact? Do you go to the police? Do they ring people like you? I mean,
it's
talk
difficult.
to a neighbour, like you say,
Yeah.
your own case, and that sort of way?
I would say, don't be ashamed of it, because it's not your fault, and tell anyone who you trust. It can be difficult telling people, because obviously it's often quite embarrassing and difficult, and you're afraid you might not be believed. And unfortunately, sometimes you do tell people who don't understand and give you an answer that knocks you back. It's also difficult, particularly on the Isle of Man, because we still lack a lot of support services. We have victim support for victims of crime, but as yet the domestic abuse bill is still not up and running, as it were. So a lot of domestic abuse isn't actually a crime here. So you might report it to the police, but actually there might not be something they could do. And there isn't a specialist domestic abuse service that you could be referred to. You can get help from UK services, but obviously you're doing that by phone or online. So really, yeah, that is one thing we want to sort of campaign on as well, which we really need investment in services, so there are places that people can go to. But it's one reason that we're launching our workplace scheme, and ultimately we want to do a community scheme as well, because if there aren't services we can go to, at least let's get some understanding neighbours, let's get some safe houses in your neighbourhood where you could go if you needed help.
And the message is not don't stay in that abusive relationship, because I'm sure people do. They've got families, they've got the house, and they're worried about what they're going to do and all those sort of things. You know?
It's very hard to leave because there's so much to deal with. You might well not have any money for housing. You might have children. You might believe that the children need to see their father, even despite what he's doing to you. There's a lot of complications around leaving. And it's most important, we need to stress, yes, people need to leave, but they need to do so safely. So you should never just say to someone, why don't you just leave, or just pack a bag and go, because that's when the risk escalates tremendously. Most people that are killed by their partners and ex-partners are killed in the 12 months after they've left. It's just highly dangerous because it's about control. So when you're in that relationship, anytime you disobey or break that control, you're punished to be brought back into control. But you leaving is like the ultimate defiance of that control, so you will be punished. And in severe cases, the punishment is your death or your child's death. Or the sort of, if I can't have you, no one else will, kind of reaction.
I'm taking away from this at the end of the day is you've got to find someone that will believe in what you're saying, because you could say it's the wrong person who doesn't really understand.
Yeah.
So you've got to find that empathy.
Yes, but by our training, we want to make it so that a huge number of people on the island
we get
do
back to
understand.
yes, which is perfect.
And then
so these courses, you need so many people to make a run, or the regular courses?
Yeah.
Or what?
We would never run the course with more than about 10 to 12 people. Ideally, it would be less. Ideally, about 8, because it's a safe forum for the women, but it needs to be somewhere that feels comfortable. And I think the bigger the room, the less personal it is, and the more vulnerable you feel. But at the same time, you need enough people there that you feel that support, realise, because a big thing about being abused is you feel you're on your own, and you learn through the group that actually, no, everyone in this room has been through this, everyone in this room understands what I'm talking about. So you need like a small, intimate, supportive group, and that's what we're aiming for. How
do they get hold of you? What's the best way to contact you?
Probably our email, which is contact@space4action.info. They can also find us on Facebook, and on the website there's also a contact us button. And
this is the sort of thing people may be watching this by themselves and realising suddenly there is something I want to do about this. Perfect. So pass this also these sort of videos on to other people you may think
share.
need it.
Yeah, definitely. Or just share with everyone. Domestic abuse happens to about 1 in 3 women and 1 in 5 men. So there's a good chance that you definitely know people that are either going through it or have gone through it, and you might not be aware that they have, but the more you share the information, then the more people will pick up on it.